Paul Stone is the CEO of Colonial Metals Group. You just heard Janine Pirro do that great commercial. You can check them out at freegoldguide.com. And you can call them today at 800-767-0835. Paul's been in here a couple of times, your third or fourth visit. And you played a very integral part in last night's election coverage. How was that?
Oh, I was so honored, blessed. Yeah, it was great. I hope to bring the occasional askew perspective that maybe not everyone is, jumping off the screen at everybody, and occasional comedy.
Yeah. You can do that. You're a funny guy. Absolutely.
I'm occasionally funny.
Yes, you are occasionally funny. It was a good cast. It was you, Governor David Patterson. He's also funny. Governor Pataki, John Katsimatidis, Rita Cosby. Who am I missing here?
Well, Wiener's extremely funny.
Right. Yeah, that was a nice exchange. It was so ridiculous. First of all, Anthony, not only did America have nothing to do with killing Sinwar, but to really make you look silly, don't forget, it was Biden and Harris who warned Netanyahu and Israel not to go into Rafah. Right. Don't go into Rafah. You go in there, you're in big trouble. So they went in. First, they saved 5 hostages, including Noah Argamani, and then they killed Sinwar. It wasn't the Americans. The Americans warned them not to go there. So when Anthony says that last night, he's flat out lying. But that's not new for the Democrats. I've never seen a party that just flat out lies. Is that unfair to say?
No, it's not. It's accurate. It's part of their, this is what I speculate on a little bit. I'm not a trained psychologist, but I see, you have to understand the source of everything matters, right? So how are they putting on the show? What's the source of this approach that they constantly triple down and quadruple down on? And to me, it's a core of fear. They come from fear. Their default setting is fear.
Right.
And out of that comes this world that's hard for us to understand, hard for us to reckon with, seems so out of touch, seems so illogical. To them, it's totally logical.
Right. But from your position, right, as the CEO of Colonial Metals Group, you don't care. Somebody wants to invest in gold or silver, right? Both of those things are a big deal for you. You don't care whether they're a Republican or a Democrat, but they may care. So if there's a prospective buyer and he hears that Paul Stone is hanging out with Sid Rosenberg, he may shop someplace else. Ever worry about that?
Never.
Never?
No.
Is that because you're so confident in the great job that you guys do, or you just don't care?
I know that I'm only responsible for doing the best I can to help everyone who'll listen. And there's an old saying, I can only work with the willing.
Right.
And don't spend any time trying to work with the unwilling.
Well, it's kind of like recovery. I'm in recovery, and if you don't admit you're powerless and you don't want help, and nothing's going to work, right?
Right.
Same thing here.
And the other thing that freed me up a long time ago was, and it'll sound antithetical, especially in this, giant skyscraper city, the Empire State. But my job is to focus on making great effort, and God takes care of the results.
Are you a very religious man?
I'm religious in a
you just mentioned God.
Way. Yeah,
you just mentioned
absolutely.
God.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And what is? Are you Catholic, Christian? What are you exactly?
Well, I grew up Lutheran.
Yeah.
But
now, where'd you grow up?
Northern Virginia.
Oh, you did grow up
right outside D.C.
Oh, okay, very nice area.
Yeah. Back then, it was 5 or 6 dairy farms. I can't remember.
Oh, that was it. Isn't that by like Silver Springs? Oh, that's Maryland, actually.
Yeah, that's Maryland. Yeah. So
gotcha.
this is across the Potomac.
Right.
Near Tyson's Corner.
Oh, yeah,
McLean,
of course.
the CIA.
Yes. All right, so you've got some religion in your life, but not
absolutely.
But you don't go to church every Sunday, and
no, not as much anymore. My that program for me has evolved into a spiritual program as well.
Yeah.
I was able to. My life kind of turned around in a big way when I realized that I'll do better if I have a living relationship with God rather than one I just talk to occasionally.
Sure, absolutely.
So yeah.
But you're not afraid to say when Trump wins last night, thank God.
That's God.
That's God.
That's God, and thank God.
But what if Kamala Harris would have won? Is that Satan? I mean, I'm just curious. Trump wins. See, this was always my issue, I'll be honest with you. When I went to rehab, okay, and they said, you have to accept a higher power. And a lot of folks who are in recovery, Paul, they don't believe in God. They don't. They're like, I'm a junkie. My friend just died. And the people will tell you in the program, we don't care. In fact, take God, G-O-D, and fill in group of orderly drunks. They don't care who you pray to. It could be a body of water. But for me, I was always like, here's what bothers me. When Tom Brady goes out there and throws 5 touchdowns, he thanks God. But when guys fly planes into the World Trade Center, God's not to blame. And I would say to my counselor, my sponsor, I'd go, I just don't understand why we're all too willing to give God credit when things are good, but he never takes any, there's no criticism for God. In other words, that's the human thing. They did it themselves. I never really got that until one day, you know what? I just surrendered. I don't care anymore.
Right.
It's easier.
It's my own personal experience. It's my own relationship. And what I would say is if Kamala won last night, you know the old saying, the only thing necessary for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. And enough good men and women did something last night. They got off their derriere. They voted. They helped others maybe get to the polling stations. They encouraged people to recognize, it's been said every time forever and ever that this is the most important election in our lives. Yeah. But it happened to be, and good men and women did something.
Interesting.
And that's why she's not headed to the White House.
And what's interesting is you used 2 words in there, which a lot of people have used to describe this race. You used good and you used evil.
Yeah.
That was this race, basically, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a so, when you look at a life, any life, a country, a town, a city, a business, right, it's going to be built on principles, truths. You can't be built on untruths. You can't come in and go, what are we going to do today? Let's make concrete. Well, tomorrow let's make, Play-Doh. Tomorrow let's make erector sets. Tomorrow we'll make Legos. Tomorrow we'll do landscaping. You have to have an organization. You have to have a direction. It has to be understood. Everyone has to understand what their role is. You can't have confusion. So confusion can only exist in a world where there's no principles, ethics, and no one takes responsibility for things. That's the world the Democrats are and have been working to set up for everybody. So this was a repulsion of evil in the way that you would then create a world where man and women is just constantly confused and therefore unsettled and not free. You can't be free when your mind is confused like that.
100%.
So
Paul
good
Stone,
triumphed.
That's right. CEO of Colonial Metals Group and freegoldguy.com. So I want to talk about the economy for 1 second. Donald Trump has a plan. And in most cases, whether he's talking about combating inflation, whether he's talking about even the dollar changing, he always talks about tariffs. Now, the Democrats, they kill him. Tariffs makes things, they make it worse, they make it worse. Trump says, hold on a second. I was president. We had a booming economy until COVID came along and destroyed that. And he wasn't afraid to tariff the crap out of places like China. So you tell me, tariffs, good or bad?
Well, they're good in a way. Whenever there's a cost applied or an additional cost included on a product, the cost has to be borne by something. In this way, you would say if we add it, let's say we double the penalty on everything coming into America from China. Well, then less people in America buy stuff made in China because it's now more expensive and they think, well, I don't really need another set of kitchen towels. I don't really need to change out my silverware. The silverware I've got is good. And it just causes people to spend less money on those products. A lot of the economists that were detractors from this program that we heard during the campaign assume that everyone's still going to buy the exact same amount of products and therefore pay a lot more money for the products they're used to getting when so much of the shopping we do in this country is frivolous.
In the final 60 seconds, are you right about all that, Paul Stone? Look, the economy is still a major issue. I think it's number one. We talk a lot about immigration. That's right there, obviously, in crime. But I really believe that the American people, including Democrats, they voted for Trump last night. They did because they're tired. They're tired of going to the grocery store and they can't afford to buy 2 loaves of bread. That's the bottom line. Do you have confidence in President Trump, who's a brilliant businessman and had a great economy the first time around, that he can fix what the Democrats just did?
There are many things that broke in this economy 30 years ago that cannot be fixed. So I don't want to be dour on such an incredible day.
And he was part of that. In all fairness, you're including him in that mix.
No, 30 years ago.
Okay.
There was a black hole that formed in our numbers, and that's when all the baby boomers retired. That can't be fixed. They're not producing anymore. They're costing. Our economy hasn't been profitable really since 2008. Without printed money, the GDP is a negative number for the last 16 years. That's called a depression. But with the power and fortitude and financial might of America, we can print all kinds of money and cover that up, except eventually the dollar's worthless and you can't do that anymore. So real quick, the point is there's a lot he can fix. If I'm having to be brief, I hope people hear this right. Instead of having a captain of the Titanic that's in denial that the ship isn't in trouble and everyone drowns, you're going to have an ally at the helm that's going to help everyone into their life rafts.
I like that. And that's Trump.
That's Trump.
Fair enough. And you're that guy, too, right? If they call Paul Stone, you're going to give them the right advice.
Precious metals are the life raft if you're worried about your retirement savings tanking because it's based in $1.
So gold and silver, right now you can't go. I mean, gold is at an all-time high, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's another it's not a stock. It doesn't have an earnings per share. So people aren't getting it going, well, the earnings keep going up. They're getting it because what it is a location. Gold and silver is a location away from where you think your money can suffer harm. When you leave the dollar, you aren't there anymore for the harm that comes to it because you're in precious metals.
Love it.
Down the road, you come out of it.
Right. Paul Stone is the CEO of Colonial Metals Group. You can find him at freegoldguide.com and call him today at 800-767-0835. Always great catching up with you. I know you haven't slept, but you're a handsome guy. You look great. You sounded great last night. You sounded great with me just now.
Thanks,
Thank you
Sid.
so much.
Thank you, Sid.